Coaches and athletes are often driven by an unquenchable thirst to push the limits of what is achievable. Can we win more games, throw farther, jump higher, run faster? But what if the goal is not to pursue limits, but rather to live in a state where limits are irrelevant? Is it possible that the current emphasis in sports on being the best and outperforming competition is inferior to what could be experienced? We believe the answer is a resounding yes. As believers, we are designed to recognize and respond to God's activity in our lives. What if there's an entirely different way to interact with God's presence while competing? Can we recognize and respond to God in real time on the court or field? The Created to Be podcast will interview coaches, athletes, and FCA staff to discuss the ways they see God and interact with His activity in their day-to-day lives. The point is that God didn't create coaches and athletes to do, He created them to be. Welcome to the Created to Be podcast. I'm your host, Bethany Pigott, and today I'm joined by Becca Walk.
Hey, y'all.
We're so excited to have you on the show today, Becca. And just if you could take a moment to share your story of how you got to MSU and what made it a great fit for you on the volleyball team here, I think that would help our listeners just get to know you a little bit better before we start some questions.
Absolutely. So a lot of people don't know this about me, but I actually did transfer here my freshman year. I started out at South Alabama. Out of high school, I wasn't a huge recruit. I'm from South Mississippi, and volleyball isn't that big down there. Wasn't really the right fit for me at South, so I decided to explore my other options and went into the transfer portal, not really sure what I wanted to do, not sure if I wanted to keep playing volleyball. But I talked a lot with our head coach here, Julie, and she just had so many great things to say about the program here, and so did the girls. And it was really evident to me that the coaches and everyone around athletics here cared a lot about who you were as a person, not just what you could do on the volleyball court. And that was really, really important to me. My journey here has been a little bit of everything. I think I've been in every role on the volleyball team, on the bench, first one off the bench, and a starter. So I've gotten to see all different sides of the court, every role you could think of. But I think it's more been about me just trusting God's plan, especially throughout the transfer process. And then everything that I've gone through here, injuries, different roles changes, and just understanding that, you know, God has such a big plan for me. And I love control and I love to be in control of my life, but that's not how God intended it to be. He knows so much better than me. And I think that's been a huge part of my journey here.
Yeah, and you've really walked that out through some really challenging circumstances. And I think just even your boldness has been so encouraging to me that even in the midst of what might be said or what you're, being influenced to do or whatever, you're like, what is God saying? And I'm going to trust that. And you have definitely done that. So we're so thankful that you are here. Also, you are on the FCA leadership team. And what has that been like for you getting involved with FCA? How did that happen?
Yeah, so my freshman year when I transferred here in the spring, one of our upperclassmen, Kendall Murr, she kind of got me involved with FCA, and that was right after COVID. So we were doing FCA in the parking lot at the Hump, and it was really cool just to get to know people. I didn't know anyone here. It was just a way to get involved and be in communion with others. And then she graduated that year, and she was on lead team. So that was before you and Justin were here. That was with Jimmy. And so she kind of recommended me to him, got me in contact with him. And just starting my sophomore year, been going to lead team. And it's been really awesome just to be in communion with others and getting to know everyone on other sports teams. And I think it's so important to be connected with others on other teams. And it's really helpful because everyone's going through the same thing and we have a lot of the same values. So that's been very helpful to me in my journey here.
Yeah, that's a great segue into just what we want to talk about today, because this podcast is about created to be. This fall, we're talking about created to be connected. And within connection, we've talked about over the past 3 episodes, different topics like vulnerability and empathy and how shame plays a role in keeping people from being vulnerable and bringing things to the light and their full selves into the picture of community and what it means to be connected to other people in community and how we mature and grow together. So how do you feel about the idea that vulnerability might not be a weakness, but actually just what it means to be human?
Yeah, I think it's a huge part in athletics, especially. I think looking back at my time here, especially the last year and a half, it's been hard to be vulnerable because, as an upperclassman on the team, you don't want your underclassmen to see you as weak, or you don't want them to see you struggling because you're supposed to have it all together. As a 5th year, I've done this 5 years now. I'm supposed to have it all together, but that's not necessarily how it always goes. And I don't think you'll ever have it all figured out. But I think looking back, when I was an underclassman, what made my captains and my upperclassmen so valuable to me was that they were human and that they showed their weaknesses with me. And when I went to them with my struggles, they showed me their struggles too. Mm-hmm. And, I think it makes me a better leader on the team when my underclassmen know I am struggling in some things. And, it's normal. You don't have to hide that. And it makes you a lot more relatable to them too, in that sense.
Yeah. What's interesting when you mentioned just now, it's a huge part of athletics. I immediately thought it's kind of crazy that we try to hide in athletics, because think about conditioning, think about really the weight room preseason. I think that just having gone through that process myself, like you are going to expose weakness. Like you might be strong, but then like emotionally something happened and like you could just break down and coaches are like, what's going on? So it's really, it is a part of athletics. If we can embrace it, then I think that there's something that can be expressed in these teams and communities that might not be available in other places, because it kind of forces you into that space. And so you'll either like try to hide it or cut it off or act like it doesn't exist. But if you just embrace it, then like you said, your struggle can relate to somebody else's struggle and you can really help each other grow.
Absolutely.
Can you describe a time where you've had to embrace that vulnerability and it's led to a deeper connection, or just even just embracing vulnerability, realizing like this is going on and I'm not going to just hide it or act like it doesn't exist?
Absolutely. So everyone knows me and my head coach have a really close relationship, and I'm very blessed that she cares a lot about me. And this summer, I just struggled a lot going into this season, not knowing what it was going to look like. It's my last year. I'm coming back from an injury. And, I was really letting the devil kind of speak into me, telling me, I'm not good enough to be here, and just not sure why I was back for a fifth year. I didn't know what my role was going to look like. And it's really scary to go to your head coach with a lot of those things and just other things on my plate that were going on, because I didn't know how she would react to them. But I went in and, she listened to me, and I just told her everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And she really did listen to me. And I think something that a lot of people don't have in the SEC especially, but this is what makes Julie so special, is that she is a believer, and she sat with me and she prayed with me, and she just spoke so much truth into me. And I think that I can play better for her because she understands who I am as a player, and she can coach me better because I am vulnerable with her, and vice versa. It was really difficult to go in there and just tell her everything and tell her how I was feeling, and just being so unsure of what the fall was going to look like. But I don't think that I would be where I am right now in such a good headspace in season if I hadn't gone to her and been vulnerable, and she was so open and listened so well.
For those who are listening, especially if they're athletes, they might be like, that's great for you, Becca, but that's pretty hard to do specifically with a coach. So I was just thinking maybe you could share a little bit about like, how did you get to that point of trust with your coach?
Yeah, I think it's definitely hard in today's world of athletics because not all coaches are like that. And I've been very, very blessed. My high school coach was just like that. He's huge in his faith, and he always shared that with us too. But I didn't have that my freshman year. It's not always something that you can do with your head coach, but it can be an assistant coach. My assistant coach my freshman year, I was really close with before I transferred, and that was helpful. But I think just understanding each other, you don't have to relate to them on faith, but just you have to have a respect for each other, and you have to understand them to be able to play for them. And I remember my sophomore year, or maybe junior year, we had the Labor Day prayer walk too. And she had asked me if I was going, and I didn't even know if I was going to go. It's 8:00 in the morning. Yeah. No one really wants to be awake at that time. But I went, and Julie was there too. And we walked over to the volleyball gym, prayed over the gym. And I was just like so in awe of like how a head coach in the SEC could be so strong in their faith. And, that's before she had her baby in the spring. We were praying for her to get pregnant. And it was just so cool because then this Labor Day, I'm just sitting thinking like, wow, so many prayers that we prayed 2 years ago have already been answered this year. It's been really, really cool just to be able to stay in one place for so long. When you're here for 4.5 years, right, you see so much develop. And I think it's just about like them pouring into you, but you have to pour back into your coaches too. Yeah, I think there's you're having to be vulnerable. And I think that the fear there for athletes, I would assume, is just like if you expose weakness, a coach could mishandle that and think that you're weak or take advantage of it, or think like, okay, they're not ready. So it's, there's a lot, I feel like the athletes like try to
juggle, like, what am I gonna be made known to my coach, any of the coaches, right? But in your case, it seems like a little bit over time, because you've been here, has helped develop this place where you could go in, because you weren't like this flash in the pan. Like, you weren't just like, okay, here today, gone tomorrow kind of athlete. Right. You know, you had this character, you built this relationship over time, so that whenever you went in with this really big decision that a lot of coaches probably would make the decision for their players, right? But she trusted you because you've invested there. But then she's also had to listen. And so I think what you just said at the end was so good. Like, it's both ways, but you stepped into that moment. And so I just want those that are listening, like, it takes time to develop that kind of trust, but you can probably feel the effects of just like playing free, being able to trust her in the midst of playing this year and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So talking a little bit about authenticity, how do you balance being true to yourself while also navigating expectations from coaches, teammates, and other people?
Yes, the expectations part, that's very hard for me, just because I feel like once you do well one time, you kind of hold yourself to that standard every single time you go out on the court or do anything in life. And that's definitely been a struggle for me. And it's not even that other people might have that expectation for me, but sometimes I have that expectation for myself, or I think that they have an expectation for me. And really, in reality, it's okay. Like, they're not holding me to it. It's all in my head. But I think over time, I've kind of realized that the only opinion that should really matter to me is God's. And whenever I take a step back and realize, like, God, the way God sees me is the only way that I need to be looking at myself too. And the way he sees me before I go play is the exact same way he sees me after I play, no matter if I have a career night or probably a career low. Yeah. And that is like crazy for me to think about, because in my head, I can be so down after a game and so upset, but God sees me the exact same way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the stories we tell ourselves are so critical. You know, we've talked about that as we've done some volleyball chapels this year. And so just like you said at the beginning, like, if I'm telling myself that people expect all these things of me, or even maybe just of yourself or what you think other people expect, just how much of a spiral that can put you in. But if you tell yourself, this is what God says about me and this is what he expects, that story will keep you steady.
Absolutely.
Right? And certain. So what practical steps do you take to foster a sense of belonging with your team? So you have stepped into this kind of vulnerability. What does it look like to be your true self? But then, like, how do you take that and begin to seed that into the culture of your team so that other people can step into that and begin to belong and feel that sense of like trust and security in that environment? Yeah,
I think creating the culture for volleyball has been a work in progress. And over the last 4 years, it's been a lot of trial and error. We always joke in the summer, we say we date our teammates. Especially this summer, we had 10 new girls on the team. And, you know, we got here in July and we played our first match middle of August. So there was a lot to get to know about each other. And like we said earlier, pouring into each other, it happens a lot on the court, but there's a lot of things that you can't get to know about someone in the weight room or on the volleyball court. And so we set it up to where you go and you hang out with someone one-on-one, go get coffee, go eat lunch, go make dinner, something like that. And I think it's really fostered like a sense of getting to know someone, but asking what your story is, where you came from, why you are the way that you are, why do you react to this situation the way that you reacted this way. And I think that the more you do that, obviously it's harder in season with our schedule, but the more you do that, people understand like, wow, you really want to get to know me. You don't care what I can do on the court. Of course I care, but you care more about what I can do off the court than I can do on the court.
Yeah. And I think that what I've just observed and what I've heard from y'all on the team is that there seems to be a very clear direction for what y'all want the culture to be, and that it's not just players that want that, but the coaching staff has that vision too. And so when both of those things are working together, you can start seeing this really healthy, vibrant culture develop.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you think, how important is developing the culture? You've been here 4.5 years. So how important is that, especially in this way that the sports has changed so much, with players really, it seems to me anyway, this is my observation again, players really are putting a lot of like what is important for them individually their goals, their desires for like where they want to take their career over what they can contribute to a team. So why is that such a selling point for you? Like what has made you want to stick around to develop this culture? And like, why is that even important to you?
Well, there's a lot of things I could say to that. But one of the biggest things Julie always tells us, just like put the team first. And at the end of the day, the team can't succeed if not everyone is pouring into that one vision, and we all have one vision. And I think it's hard sometimes because there are personal things and personal goals that you want to make. And of course, that's great. But at the end of the day, one person doesn't just win. It's a team winning. And if one person loses, then the whole team loses. What's kept me around so long? That's a loaded question. My sophomore year, after we had such a great season, I just remember like the feeling of getting to postseason for the first time and never wanting to like not feel that again. And then after we didn't make postseason my junior year, like the feeling of not making it was worse than the greatness of making it, if that makes sense. The feeling of doing it with your teammates and the connections that you make along the way, it's priceless, honestly. Like there's literally nothing like it. And I can hold that in my heart until way longer after I leave here.
Yeah, that's a great also segue into this question, which is how does having deep connections with others enhance your overall joy and well-being as a student athlete? Like what do those connections mean to you?
Yeah, I think that is like everything for me here at State. And it's been interesting because everyone always says Mississippi State's a family, and you don't understand it until you get here. And that's what makes this place so special, is because the connections that I've made here are probably my favorite thing about why I've come here my whole career. Just like, I mean, you pouring into me every single week, and just my coaches pouring into me, and, the teammates might come and go, but also like all these new people in my life have been so beneficial, and that's what I'm going to remember way more. And they've impacted me so much more than the wins or losses that we've had here at State. And I have just been so shaped by the people that have been here and in my life at State, especially when you're here for so long, and you really do get to form deeper connections, just like me and you.
Yeah. I just wrote down as you were talking, the value of being shaped and formed, and then you like said it. But that's what, to me, this time, these 4 years in college, or maybe more, for others, you're getting more degrees. So, hey,
yes.
But those years are so critical in where you're going to go in life, like who you become. Like it's such a special time to be that 18 to 22, sometimes older for those COVID kids that are still around. I cannot believe COVID kids are still around. But
last year.
yeah. We're almost out of that. But it's really important to be the value of being shaped and formed. And I feel like as college sports continue to change, it seems like that's becoming less valuable than what can be earned or achieved in this window of time. But that's who you're going to be like for the rest of your life, and making connections, deep friendships that you'll have for the rest of your life too.
Yeah. And I feel like that going into the vulnerability piece too, like if you're not vulnerable with those connections, like you don't get a lot out of them. And I would say like the people here have gotten me through like some of the hardest days of my life. I mean, I've been here for 4.5 years. So much has happened. And like they're with me from the best days whenever we have these huge upsets or whenever crazy breakthroughs, anything. But they're also here when we have like the lowest of lows. And if you don't share that with other people, like it's really hard to have those connections if they don't understand like what's going on in your life.
Yeah, that's so good. We're going to take a short break and then come back to just have some closing thoughts, your advice to others, things you want to impart to them as we finish out the podcast. Living out your faith in college can be a challenge, let alone in your sport, but it doesn't have to be. Come join FCA in the Crane Theater Room in the Shower Fieldhouse on Monday nights at 7 p.m. to fellowship with other athletes and encounter God together. We look forward to seeing you there. Welcome back. All right, as we finish up, I just thought it might be fun for Becca to gear some of this advice to, either transfers or incoming freshmen, people that are new here, just talking to them, encouraging them about like what you would say to step into. Like if you were to look back at your freshman self coming in, like what would you encourage your freshman self to do, knowing what you know now about what opportunities would come? What might be some advice that you would give?
Yeah, so we've been talking about this a lot with our volleyball pregame chapels, but I think such a huge piece of athletics is just there's so many things around you in your environment that are going to change. But one thing that doesn't change is God.
Mm-hmm.
And if your eyes are on God, the stuff around you won't come in and it won't affect you as much. But if your eyes are on the things that are around you, it can be really easy to get caught up in that and get really anxious about what you have to do that day and the spot that you're in. And I think that that's what I would probably tell myself is just be rooted in your faith. Don't get too caught up in the stuff around you because all this is so temporary. And the only thing that we have forever is God. It's hard to think about because it is your whole life. Sometimes it feels like it's your whole life, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I would tell myself.
That's good. So what advice would you give athletes who struggle with vulnerability and forming deep connections? Like, is there anything that you could say, this helped me step into that?
Yeah, I would say, God made us to be in community with others. He didn't intend for us to ever be alone. And I think that's a really important piece to remember, that we can't be fully helped or healed from anything if you don't open up to someone about it. And obviously opening up to God about it, but he sends people into our life for reasons. And he's trying to speak through other people a lot of the time too. If you're not hearing from God, maybe he's trying to talk to you through someone else. I genuinely believe like that's happened to me so many times throughout my career here. So just having your listening ears on at all times can speak to us in so many different ways, but just being open to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's people that, in a previous podcast, I say, like, just test the waters a little bit with certain relationships. Like, see if people will actually attentively listen to you at first. Like, share a story, see if they're curious about it. And that could be not even something hard, but just to kind of get a feel for, is this person relationally mature enough to handle what I might want to share, you know? And you find those trusted people as you show up to things, as you go to church, as you show up to a small group, as you show up to a chapel for your team or FCA, whatever those are the spaces I would say would be most likely to find somebody, right?
Absolutely.
And then you just keep being present, and then you can take baby steps into this. But I would love for people to just, as they're listening to this, to just really hear how you have been here over a period of time long enough to where you could establish those kinds of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can step into those things. Like, it just takes so much time. So whether you are here for a year, but you have other relationships outside of Mississippi State, just as like, who are you creating history with? History with the Lord, but also like history with people.
Yeah.
And that's really important. And I mean, in my life, I have for sure, probably I could say like 5 to 10 people at any point, probably more than that, but just that coming to mind right now, that like if I needed something or prayer, like I could reach out or call. If I am struggling, I could reach out and call. And you need to have those circles of like those types of people to be. And then I think once you live from that place and you're accepted and loved in that place, then it's easier just to kind of be that way all the time. Like, you're not trying to like hide anything because you're like, I'm safe. Like, this is who I am. So I think that it's good to just take those baby steps when you can.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else you would like to leave listeners with as we close today?
I think we covered it all.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Becca, for coming on. For those of you who listen, please come back next week. We will have another athlete on just to talk about these topics that we've had over the past few weeks to really hopefully make it very applicable to you and your context. We're so thankful for you coming on today, Becca.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Created to Be podcast. To learn more about FCA at Mississippi State, visit www.msufca.org and follow us on Instagram at HailStateFCA_. If you would like to become a financial partner, visit www.fca.org/donate to sow into the work God is doing through FCA at Mississippi State.